Welcome to Believe, the Conspiracy Theory podcast. I'm Phil Green.
And I'm David Ferguson.
And we are two comedians presenting a podcast all about the world's craziest conspiracy theories, aren't we?
Yes, we are. I personally think it's unveiling the truth.
You do, because you believe, don't you?
I believe.
Yeah, and we had a couple where you haven't, but this one I think...
This is fact. This is truth.
This is very much a believer.
This is one of those ones that if you're not on board, you're wrong.
Okay, let's see how that pans out. So in each episode, we bring on a fellow comedian. That comedian chooses a conspiracy theory they want to talk about. It might be a conspiracy theory they believe in. It might be a conspiracy theory they don't believe in. Or it might just be a conspiracy theory they think is the most batshit thing they've ever heard, and they want to find out why anyone would believe it in the first place.
I think they'll believe this one, though.
You do genuinely think that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I have so much to say in this episode.
So we have social media channels, don't we?
You know, we do. We do. And do you know what social media channels they are?
I do. Do you?
I do. Instagram?
Yeah.
TikTok?
Yeah.
YouTube.
That's right.
Yay!
Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. It's at Believe Conspiracy Pod. And it is where you can get in contact with us. If you want to tell us about the conspiracy theory that we've been talking about, give us your opinion on what we've been saying. Do you agree with us? Do you disagree with us? And also...
have you got stuff that you want us to talk about? I mean, we want the information. I know there's people listening to this podcast and watching this podcast that have the inside scoop, and we want it. Well, I want it.
We want to know what you think, and we want to know what conspiracy theories you want us to talk about. We have a list. We will put your conspiracy theory on that list, and we will find a comedian that wants to talk about that conspiracy theory, won't we? It's very much our service to you. It's all for you.
It's all for you.
Now, I'm on tour. There's the last few dates left. I've done most of them now, but I've also got Liverpool, Peterborough, and Paul left. So if you live in any of those cities over the next couple of months, please look us up on the show notes in any of the shows. You will find a link to those shows, or you can go on to philgreencomedy.com and there is a link there as well. Now, we should give a big shout out to our tech today.
Yes, we should.
The wonderful Luke.
Yay!
And our guest today is...
my fellow countryman.
Your fellow countryman.
Cathal O'Riordan.
Cathal O'Riordan. Did we have a conversation before this about how to say his name? Yes, we did. Have we got it right? Who knows? We'll find out when he gets here. He's a fantastic comedian. He was an Irish Comedian of the Year finalist. Did you know that?
I did, yeah.
You did. You probably, because everyone in Ireland knows that, I guess.
Oh, absolutely. There's statues erected to his honour in my hometown.
That's Ireland for you. He gigs across the UK, also gigs in the USA, and he gigs in Ireland. He's very much an international comedian, I would say.
Very much so.
And one of the coolest comedians on the circuit.
Yes, because he just does not give a flying hoot.
No, he does not. Effortlessly cool.
Effortlessly cool. Also, the best biceps in the business.
Best biceps in the business. What an accolade. And really, that's what most comedians aspire to, if anything. It's not laughs. It's all about brute strength. And the conspiracy that Cathal has chosen is...
Well, it's not really a conspiracy now. It's ancient aliens.
Ancient astronauts.
Aliens.
Let's bring him on.
Get out of the rabbit hole.
It's a fake. Every single bird in the sky is a robot.
It's fiction.
Doubt your government.
It's an urban legend.
Like, they're actually spraying something in the sky?
No way.
A stream of absurdity.
It's a total fabrication.
Welcome to the podcast, Cathal O'Riordan!
Yay!
There we go. There we go.
There you go.
That's the enthusiasm I want for the whole hour.
Oh, we can't sustain that. Not at our age. You know that.
No.
How are you doing?
Good, man. Good. Glad to be here.
Yeah, good. It's lovely to have you on board. I've noticed that two Irishmen have gone with a green shirt straight after St. Paddy's Day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Completely not intentional.
Really?
Yeah, Irish people we have 56% green shirts.
Yes. Yes.
In our wardrobe.
That's what I've heard. Yeah.
It's all true. All the rumours are true.
And I'm from Northern Ireland, so there's the white.
Yeah.
See, so I'm not
Okay.
quite as Irish as
No,
Cathal.
you're a type of Irish. It's good.
I'm a
It's fine.
type of
A type of a variety of Irish.
variety of Irish. I have an Irish passport. Oh.
Yeah, which, let's face it, is more valuable than a British one these days.
Yeah, it's so much fun. No.
You've been gigging. You gig a lot, don't you? You're gigging constantly.
yeah.
It's a gig machine.
He's a gig machine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
try and gig as much as I can.
Yeah.
Out around London, try and get outside as much as I can as well. These
Yeah,
days.
yeah.
And yeah.
How often do you gig over in Ireland?
Very rarely.
Do you?
'cause the thing is, when I go home, it's like to see family. So
Yeah.
it's like I don't want to spend time away because Ireland there's like 4 places where there's gigs.
Yeah.
And you have to travel an hour or 2 to each one. So
Yeah.
it's not like London. So I'd rather just hang out at home, to be honest.
Fair
with you.
enough.
I go home.
Yeah.
Now and again. No.
And I'm sure, do you talk about your family when you're on stage?
Yeah, quite a bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they'll probably know them, I imagine.
My parents have zero interest in my career whatsoever.
Really?
Never seen me perform. They're just happy I'm happy.
Oh, That's
My
a nice
parents
thing.
don't care about anything I do either.
That's actually the best balance you can have. Like parents that are really happy for you to do it, but don't want to come and watch you, so you can slag them off as much as you like.
And things like my parents are, they're of an age as well. Like there's a certain degree of my material I wouldn't want to do in front of my nearly 80-year-old Irish Catholic parents. So they're happy. That's good.
That's a nice thing. And you've been looking into your family tree.
Yeah. That's been my my whole thing for the last few months, ever since the start of the year. And I've just been, I looked at it there yesterday. I do Ancestry and all this kind of stuff. So it's like 1,009 people there now in my family tree.
So that's amazing.
I mean, I'm obsessive about it. It's hours a day. I'm OCD about it.
Who's the most interesting person you found in your family?
Other than yourself.
Yeah, obviously.
Obviously, me aside. There is one cool little story I told you this one last week about. So I had a great granduncle. He fought in World War One. He died in World War. Actually, he died in Greece. But so 1916, I think Christmas of 1915 it was, and Princess Anne sent. So the thing was, the royal family would send out these little tin boxes with like cigarettes and chocolate for the troops, right? At Christmas. And in one of the boxes, like 600,000 sent out. In one of the boxes, Princess Anne went down to Deptford where the warehouse was, and she saw them being packed, and she put one bit of paper into one of the boxes, and it was, this is Princess Anne. Whoever receives this, please write back to me at Buckingham Palace, right? She was the daughter of the king at the time. And my granduncle was the guy that got
that is amazing.
And he's like, it made the newspapers and stuff because everyone wanted to know who. It was like Willy Wonka's kind of
golden
ticket thing, And it was in the papers like, Peter Fitzgerald received this. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Back to because I'm 90% sure he couldn't read or write, so he probably had someone next to him just say thank you very much, Peter Fitzgerald. Yeah. So that was a cool little story I never knew about.
So and what did you get to sleep with Princess Anne? Was that the?
Those were the rules at the time. It was a different time. It was a different time.
Different time.
And, I think he deserved it. But, God love him. Like and on the sad thing, of course, then a year later he was dead. That kind of thing. So it's but it fascinating. A lot of like war stories. Way more soldiers in my family than I ever knew. Yeah. Like American cousins who are like Purple Heart, Silver Star, World War II people, and all that. Like it's one thing I didn't know about the family. Not to go on forever about it, but like the amount of soldiers. Basically, it's like a long generation after generation plan to make me look soft. Yeah. Basically, it's like, just make me look like a complete pussy. So it's
But that's what you did. I mean, joining the army was a way to get out. I mean,
it was.
I mean, like because there's army in my family as well, and I'm not talking about that kind of army. But things shifted. If you were poor or you wanted to get into, you joined the army. That's what you did. Like, you were telling me all this before we went to see June 2, and I had to pretend like I didn't want to sit down and talk for hours about this. Now, don't get me wrong, absolutely love June 2. You both know that. Fantastic. We had a great time, really great seats. Kyle got really great seats.
You take someone out for a date, you have to pay it.
Yeah, you do. And he is a diva when it comes to that shit.
He is high maintenance. I couldn't keep it up, One more very quick story about the soldier thing.
Oh yeah, this is great. Yeah.
So I had great grandfather, 1800s, born by 1850, that kind of thing. He was in the British Army. He travelled around the world for like 20 odd years, and he fought in the Boer War and all that kind of stuff. So he wasn't just joined up for a war; he was a lifetime soldier. And his son, who would be my great grandfather, he fought in the IRA in the War of Independence in 1921. Yeah. So his father fought 20 years for the British Army, and his son fought against the British Army.
Whoa!
Yeah, so that was a pretty cool story. Yeah, I had no idea about either.
That's a book. Surely that's a book.
Yeah. It's a couple of chapters at least.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely an Edinburgh show for sure.
Oh, easy, yeah, no problem.
Yeah,
like it's fascinating.
Because everyone thinks when you go back in the family tree, like it's the humbling nature of it, like how well I didn't grow up particularly wealthy, but like compared to my ancestors and stuff they had to go through compared to that way, it humbles you. Like it makes you think, Jesus, not that bad. Yeah, like I did ancestors who died in poor houses and stuff like that. I'm not living that poorly. My little flat in Finsbury Park is actually not that bad. Yeah. When
it's not squalor. Let's say
it's not squalor. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So it is quite humbling. So I'd recommend anyone do it.
Yeah. Well, I think we're trying to save money by getting famous enough to be on.
Who do
you think you are? Yeah, exactly.
The BBC did the work. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, that's what. Some of them are really boring.
I don't think yours would be boring because you've got
I've got interesting relatives that aren't me. Yeah, you're right. That is actually true.
Once you go further out from Phil, they get quite interesting.
Well, I mean, like the buck stops with me. Like I'm gay, so like
So but you're flying the flag.
Yeah. And there are other descendants. It's just not coming through me.
Yes.
That sounded weird, but there you go.
Coming through you, but there you go. The bloodline lives on.
I would hope they're not coming through you. That's anyway. Conspiracy theories. Now I know. Fergus told me you're a little bit into these, right? You've got an interest in.
Yeah, because they've got an interest. Yeah. And in general, look, there's crazy ones. There's obviously birds don't exist level of conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
But I just think
Birds don't exist.
which I believe in, but it's. I think, look, in a big spectrum of, let's say, there's two wide spectrums of the guy out here who believes in literally everything, like 9/11, moon landings, birds don't exist, whatever, and will believe whatever conspiracy. And then you have the other end of the spectrum, which is like you will believe whatever mainstream media or whatever people in power tell you. Mm-hmm. I'd prefer to be closer to this guy. He's less dangerous, in my opinion, than this guy. The guy who. These people start wars. These guys end up in basements and are kind of sad. Like these are more dangerous over here, you know.
I've got a first floor flat.
See, you moved up. Yeah, you're moving up a couple of floors. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that is true. You're right. The conspiracy theorists you meet don't seem to present a problem to society generally.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe some of the sort of devout Trump followers that are on the kind of extreme end. We talked about the insurrections on this before, but really. Most of the time, they're fairly harmless, right?
Yeah, fairly harmless. And, most of the damage you're doing is to yourself. If you're on that extreme end, it's like you end up being a bit of a sad person, but you're not a big damage to society, in my opinion. And if you want to believe the earth is flat, who are you hurting? Really? You know, that kind of thing. So, it's better to keep an open mind to, because sometimes, guess what? Governments do lie to you.
Yeah.
And that's probably a good thing to keep an open mind to, I think,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There's usually something that's happened in somebody's life that makes them question something, right?
Yeah. And it's always that case as well. Like, even the term conspiracy theory is kind of almost used to, that's a crazy person.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But it's like, but it's like, you can be crazy, like the birds aren't real example, crazy. But everyone has their one thing. They'll say, that's crazy. Obviously, the world's not flat. 9/11, oh, wait, hold on now. 9/11's a real thing.
Yeah,
but everyone has their one thing.
That's right, exactly.
In,
Conspiracy theories are crazy, but this one, absolutely.
But JFK was shot by the CIA.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Right, exactly. and we talked about the JFK one as being the one that kind of brought the term conspiracy into the mainstream, right?
Yeah,
conspiracy theorists. So, this conspiracy theory, ancient astronauts. Now, I'll be honest with you, David knew a lot about this. I know you already know a lot about this. I knew sort of about this on a sort of high level, but reading into it, there's so much in this, and it goes back quite a long way. So the ancient astronauts conspiracy theory, also known as the ancient aliens theory, suggests that extraterrestrial beings visited Earth in ancient times and interacted with human civilizations. Proponents of this theory believe that these extraterrestrial visitors influenced the development of human culture, technology, and religious beliefs. One of the primary arguments put forth by proponents of the ancient astronauts theory is the existence of ancient structures and artifacts that they believe were too advanced for the technological capabilities of ancient civilizations. Examples often cited include the pyramids of Egypt, Stonehenge in England, the Nazca lines in Peru, and various megalithic structures found around the world. Supporters of the theory point to instances of ancient engineering feats that they argue are beyond the capabilities of the civilizations of the time. This includes the precision of stone cutting and placement, as well as the alignment of certain structures with astronomical phenomena. Yes. So,
in synopsis.
Yes, thanks. And I think that is, and this is really at the core of it, isn't it? It's how were these things built and how were these things created at a time where seemingly the technology simply wasn't there to support it. Yeah. And I'll be honest with you, I've been to all three of those places. And I'm a skeptic, you know this, but even, I get there and think, how the fuck? Like, you go to the pyramids, you think, how is this?
The rocks, the level of engineering that was required.
Yeah.
The fact that we cannot do it today.
Yeah.
And at some point, like, they were able to do that then, and then they lost the ability. Like, it's incredible to think about the Stonehenge and Machu Picchu, all these kind of incredible feats of engineering that were capable back then. That how did they manage it?
Yeah.
And it's like, and going, and then you go deeper into, like, to say the pyramids and stuff. they're aligned in a certain way towards the cosmos,
Yeah.
and like how did they know that kind of stuff? You know, it's because one of the other things about when you go deeper into the whole ancient astronaut concept is they came and they gave people the knowledge. They had this, you know, advanced knowledge, advanced civilization, and then they came, and some people then go further and argue that the missing link is the mixing of alien DNA with like the you know, more ape or Neanderthal kind of peoples. That's how we went from there to there.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing. So it's fascinating. It's like and the thing is,
did they come for fucking or not? Is what we're,
I mean, was this just like them going to Thailand? I don't know, but this is their equivalent. But it's just fascinating that it's in so many different cultures, that kind of concept.
Yes, true.
People came from the stars, and people came from the heavens.
Yeah.
That's where it gets tied up. Some people think with religion and things like that, you know. And people had these advanced views, and where did they come from, you know?
Because a lot of the theory here is that the Bible stories that we're taught, and God's coming down, that kind of thing. The interpretation
Angels from heaven,
exactly.
Like,
the interpretation of that is actually it was extraterrestrials.
That's
and
perfect.
They were coming with quite useful information. Let's face it.
Yeah. And it's like even let's say if you look in just in the Christian Bible, like when Jesus was born, how did the three wise men find him? They followed a moving star in the sky.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a UFO. This is what people will say. You know, like all these different things connect, and like. In the ancient Indian culture, they talk about, you know, flying gods flew around in what we would consider flying saucers, like things like that just across different cultures just seems odd. You know what I mean, that kind of thing. So it's
Do we think that they came down and advised us how to build them, or do we think they came down and helped us build them?
Well, it's what they say is that they gave us the knowledge of engineering and maybe technology that allowed us to build these things.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying all that's true. I'm just saying the logic behind it is we seem to advance. Like one of the big ones is Samaria. So let's say what's modern day Iraq. So that's where we started with agriculture. Like that developed incredibly quickly in a short space of time, and we all learned from there. Like they developed agriculture, things like that. And Samaria is where this concept of the Anunnaki, which is like one of the concepts of the ancient aliens. The ancient astronauts, you know, a lot of conspiracy theorists talk about a thing called an Anunnaki. They were like their pantheon of gods, right? So Anu and Ki, God of the heavens, God of earth, right? Yeah. That's what their beliefs was. And yet again, their pantheon is the same concept of these people came from the sky, they flew down, and they gave us great knowledge, you know? And it's that... so it's that kind of concept of it repeats over and over in different cultures. Yeah. You know, and what made us, like Homo sapiens have been around for 200,000 years. Why did we only start doing anything of note 40,000 years ago? That kind of thing. So some conspiracy theorists go into the whole stoned ape theory as well, which is like, you know, we were milling around like ape-like creatures, and then we took magic mushrooms, and then we all got incredibly intelligent. Well,
I'm very, very interested in the mushroom theory that we took mushrooms, ancient humanity took mushrooms, and that expanded our mind.
But to engineering, I mean, good music, but
well, the
different ways of thinking. I guess.
I mean, we made beer before we made bread, and they're very similar processes, and we made beer which had hallucinogenics in it. So there was definitely something there about mushrooms expanding our mind. But the idea that humanity, like Samaria just appears pretty much fully formed. That's the first instance of agriculture, like Cathal was saying. It's also the first instance of writing, of artwork, of cities, of the justice system, of sophisticated barter. And the reason we know this is because we have so many tablets that record all this. There's about we have the records from Samaria, but that came out of nowhere comparatively, and they say in their narrative, they say they were given these things, they were taught these things.
That is consistent actually with all of these accounts, is that they're saying that the knowledge was passed on to them rather than
aliens doing it themselves.
They came down and said, hey, here's a pyramid.
Yeah, exactly. So it's amazing. So it's like, and then some of the Sumerian concept as well is this notion of it goes to the mixing as well. So at some point there was a mixing between these advanced beings and humans, and that's what made better humans, basically the Homo sapiens, that kind of thing, or people, and those people then, these hybrids, they became the kings of these ancient civilizations.
I was about to say, so we could be part alien, but we're not, are we?
Well, it's not that we're part alien, it's that we're genetically manipulated.
Okay.
And if you look at our DNA, I think it's our 24th chromosome, it's 2 chromosomes jammed together badly.
Yeah. That
didn't happen naturally.
It's fascinating.
That's what won me over. And if I'm getting the number of chromosomes wrong, I'm really, really sorry.
Right in.
But it's...
You're an expert in conspiracy theories, not biology. So.
I have this thing where I'm blind with numbers and time. And it gets confused. But and I've been... how many chromosomes? I think it's the 24th chromosome. It looks like 2 chromosomes. It's suddenly very big.
And not to be too controversial either, because the cards on the table, I'm a Christian man. You know that's safe. Oh, yeah. But you can make the argument, what's the whole idea behind Jesus? A woman became pregnant magically, and she gave birth to this amazing child who could do miracles and had amazing views of the world. That then plays into this concept of an alien hybrid mix. This is what some people will say, right?
Yeah. So Mary fucked an alien.
I'm not using those words.
No,
Ma'am, Dad, I'm not using those words.
They don't follow your work.
There's no way that they don't know what podcasts are.
No, that she was genetic manipulation impregnated her.
Yeah.
I'm the reason I'm fascinated by the ancient astronaut theory is that my grandfather believed that. Whenever we would have a journey.
That's interesting. Someone of that generation.
Yeah, we're talking like the early 90s. I would have this conversation with my
because Chariots of the Gods, famous book, was written in the 70s.
Yes, Van Daniken.
There you go.
Yeah. And Chariots of the Gods is Gogs, Gog and Magog, is largely discredited.
DC commentary,
it's largely discredited now. But the idea, but like the Sumerian tablets do exist. Zachariah Sitchin. Is very famous for the. Have you got Zachariah Sitchin?
No, but we will come on to Chariots of the Gods, because I think that is a really key text in all of this. Really, so largely a lot of it has been discredited, but it did give rise to this whole theory and this whole following. It's very much like the foundation of it. So Erich von Daniken, if I pronounce that right? Yes. So Erich von Daniken is a Swiss author, best known for his controversial theories involving ancient astronauts and extraterrestrial influence on human history. He gained widespread attention with his book Chariots of the Gods, published in 1968. So he's got theories about a number of sites, as we were talking about before, in world sites and how they came about. Erich von Daniken puts forward, so this is about the pyramid. So Erich von Daniken puts forward many beliefs about the Great Pyramid of Giza in Chariots of the Gods, saying that ancient Egyptians could not have built it, not having sufficiently advanced tools, leaving no evidence of workers, and incorporating too much intimate knowledge about the Earth in its geography into the design, as you were saying, Carl. To date, the technique of construction is not well understood, and the tools the Egyptians used are not widely known. However, marks left in the quarries by these tools are still visible, and many examples of possible tools are preserved in museums. Von Daniken claims that it would have taken the Egyptians too long to cut all the blocks necessary to drag them to the construction site in time to build the Great Pyramid in only 20 years, and a Nova documentary failed to demonstrate the proposed technique, the proposed construction method, and came to no conclusions about how long the theoretical technique would require to construct the monument. The documentary does not actually demonstrate the cutting of or transportation of a true 2.5-ton block. Fuck me, that's a big way they were. But instead has actors portray the theory by pushing what is a prop rock on a prop sled based on an ancient sled that was discovered in Egypt. Von Daniken also said that there were too many problems with their tools, and according to him, the Egyptians had no prehistory, so they could not have built these large pyramids, even though there are pyramids in Egypt that were built before the Great Pyramid, because he believed that there was no prehistory. Von Daniken put forward that there is nothing known about how, when, or why these pyramids were built. I mean, that's a fair statement, isn't it? We don't really know for sure why they were built.
Like Egyptology tries to make this claim, and I'm not saying that human beings didn't build the pyramids. That's a separate argument, but we don't know how they did it at all. Copper tools do not do anything.
Cut with the level of, don't cut with the level of precision. Like the stones, this is often mentioned, like the stones on the pyramids, like you couldn't put a razor blade through them.
Yeah.
Like the level of detail that they're cut with is amazing. And this is what, 5,000 years years ago. Yeah. So it's...
I mean, with copper tools, they just wouldn't last.
Took 2 years to do the hybrid Islington, like, a roundabout. So, I mean, like,
yeah. And then when we
6 years to HS2, we can only get to Birmingham.
Can't wait. Modernity. Like on bronze tools, don't cut it either, no pun intended, and yet we can see that there is precision cutting. All you have to do is look at Egyptian statues, you know, the precision and the symmetry that they have. Like that wasn't done by primitive tools. It just wasn't. It just wasn't. But what was done by, we don't know. And I know the thing of like, oh, it was aliens or it was.
Well, that's kind of because he's sort of suggesting that the Egyptians couldn't have done it. What we're necessarily saying, but one of the theories is that actually the aliens, just as you said before, just passed on the knowledge. So there's a theory that the Egyptians did do it, but the knowledge of how to do it was given to them by.
And you're on a fine line, and you have to be careful with this kind of because you don't want to make it sound like, you know, oh, how could they have done it? Do you know what I mean? Because it makes it sound like almost this Western concept of how could we weren't doing it, therefore how could they have done it? You know, so it isn't belittling the knowledge that they needed to do that somehow they managed to lose afterwards. Yeah. Like they became less developed. It's just it's incredibly interesting. Yeah. You know?
I mean, you can see that later pyramids aren't as symmetrical, aren't as good. You can see that like after the Great Pyramid, it is a downgrade. It's like they're trying to remember who they were. And I find that very interesting. You know, was it a cataclysm? I think there's points in history that are missing. I really, really do.
We only really started writing stuff down at a certain time. Yeah. Human beings have been around for tens of thousands of years as Homo sapiens. So it's like, but we only really know anything about the last maybe 10 to 15,000 years. We only started writing on walls about 40,000 years ago. Yeah. You know, so we're around for a long time. So how did it ramp up so fast and so you know, oddly? You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah. But, I mean, you're right. That is one of the things. Is none of this is documented. But like you said about the other pyramids being a bit shitter, there is an argument to say that whoever built the pyramids of Egypt, the Great Pyramids of Egypt, were on these drugs, magic mushrooms, whatever it was they were taking that expanded their minds because they had access to them, they found them, whatever. And there were other communities in the world that were trying to build or replicate that did not have access to those, therefore did not have the creative nous to do it. So, which is, some would like to say, a more rational argument than aliens showed us how to do it. But either way, at some point, the ability to do that got suppressed, right?
Yeah, it fell away.
And why? Like there are obviously the Great Pyramids of Giza, but we also have pyramids in Central America. Yeah, those two cultures were in no way connected.
No.
So why did they both decide to build these amazing pyramid type structures, both of certain religious significance as well? Yeah. So and like the Central American background, they have a similar thing. Like people came from the sky. There's people living in the clouds. You know, that kind of and it's you know, they needed to sacrifice to these gods in the sky. Why did they all come to this same kind of conclusion that there's these magical people that come and they're higher beings than we are? You know, so it's definitely something to keep your mind open to. You know, and doesn't mean it's all true, and there are grifters out there. There's what's his name, Georges. He's the guy, the meme guy.
Yes,
aliens, bro.
We've got coming up. Don't worry about that. Yeah. He's on the list. Yeah. So von Daniken also claims that Egyptians built perfect pyramids from the beginning, but numerous pyramid precursors survive, showing the errors made and corrected by Egyptian architects while they were perfecting the technique. These include simple bastabas, the pyramid, the step pyramid of Dosir, and the so-called bent pyramid.
Yeah, it goes up and then sort of goes in.
Does it?
Yeah, it looks like
Where's
a
that?
hat.
Is it?
I'm being. Oh God! I see. I know all this, and now that we're talking about it, I don't remember. Yeah. I don't know.
You need mushrooms.
Like,
well, I've said this before. You know, I want to take an ayahuasca trip.
Yeah. Nothing to do with. I just want to take an ayahuasca trip.
Oh yeah. Well, it's just I've heard that it really helps, and I'm destroyed by anxiety all the time, and it would just be nice to have that conversation with myself going, what are you worried about, son? You're going to die anyway. Like, relax.
I got you a coffee today.
You did, and it really helped.
You're clearly self-aware enough to know that already. You don't need to take chemicals into your brain.
But I love the idea of shitting myself and throwing up in the Amazon and then finding self-enlightenment, the dream.
Yeah.
In his book, he says there is no evidence of Egyptian workers at the pyramid site. However, archaeologists have found evidence of buildings where workers would have lived, with bakeries and sewer systems. There are also tombs of workers, with some of the skeletons showing evidence of having received medical care. This may indicate the workers were well taken care of, which suggests they were Egyptian. Von Daniken states that the Great Pyramid is located on the median line dividing the continent, and the Egyptians could not have aligned the edges so perfectly to true north without advanced technology that only aliens could give them. Egyptian builders, however, knew of simple methods to find north via star observation. Egyptologists have found artifacts and drawings of an object called a merkit, which enabled the ancient Egyptians to find true north using the North Star and other stars aligned with the merkit. The ancient Egyptian astronomers and possibly farmers spent much time studying the stars in order to accurately track the agricultural seasons. If that is true, how did they know any of that information to even do that in the first place, right?
I have an answer, but I don't know. I don't want to jump it. Right. Go. So we don't see the night sky the way they see the night sky because they didn't have pollution and it was clear skies. So they were able to navigate by the stars. I know navigate's not the word to use on Earth, but like they were able to see it. They just clearly were able to see it. Like the night sky was a great show. I think the closest we get in modern society, where we could go into central Australia and you get to see the night sky as the night sky would have been for people before the Industrial Revolution. So being able to map things by the stars, like it was always there, it was always above you, it was something that you grew up with, so you always knew, like you knew it like the back of your hand, and they were able to do things like that. I mean, there are seafaring nations that were able to navigate just by looking at the stars. They didn't have equipment. Like this is something that we as human beings are able to do. So being able to navigate it. I keep using navigate when I mean plot. Be able to plot things in ancient Egypt just by looking at the stars. It was just something that we're able to do because it was a clear night sky, even when it was cloudy.
Sure, but how did they know to do that, I guess, is what I'm getting at. I'm not saying it wasn't, of course it's conceptually possible, and you're right that the clarity they would have had of the sky at that time would have been incredible. But how did they have the information to know what to do? I mean,
there is as much as we're saying it's the ancient astronauts, human beings are very, very intelligent creatures, and just figuring it out. So they know.
There's a necessity as well. Like, I mean, the one thing that's constant in your life, like, would be the stars in the sky. Yeah. Right. So if you want to travel a plotted point to going somewhere, if you wanted to go somewhere, you follow this star for X amount of days and you get to the next town or that kind of thing, because they didn't have any other system. But you have a constant thing in the sky, which is there every night, or the sun sets here, it rises here. That's how you kind of move your way around, I guess. If you wanted to travel a distance more than a few miles. You know? So, like I said, human beings are an innovative species, and they just perhaps necessity causes them to learn that you work with what you have, right?
Yeah, so we're very, very good at recognizing patterns.
Check.
Right?
Yeah. Nailed it.
I am wearing a check shirt. But yes, like we're very good at recognizing patterns, and we're very good at applying those patterns. Like anybody that's autistic, you know that, you like things done a certain way.
Do you think the Three Kings were autistic? Because they just followed the moving star, didn't they?
Well, was it
to the alien baby?
Was it Three Kings? We know there was three gifts. That's why we say there's three kings.
Yeah.
We don't know how many wise men or astrologers. That's what they actually were. They're called astrologers.
Yeah. Mages.
Mages. Yeah.
Magi. Yeah.
Or aliens. No, I'm but I mean, getting back to the idea that Jesus was, a hybrid human. That's not out of the realm of possibility. Like that goes. Gnosticism talks about him being half angel and stuff. I find that very interesting. That he was the virgin birth. Which the reason that's such a big deal is saying, well, his father wasn't human. Now we say it's God, but it could have been something else. Now
sexy alien,
and that's something that gets talked about a lot. That's something that gets like. I quite like the idea of sky Jesus. I do.
Like the idea of, I mean, like in the Bible, he refers to his Father in heaven. Yeah. I mean, we take that as God, but Father in the heavens, because it could be a Father from the sky, that kind of thing. So it's. And in a way also, it doesn't really take away, some people, if you're a devout Christian, you might consider it blasphemous, but it doesn't really take away from the notion that this higher being was giving us this knowledge. And it doesn't really take away from any of the words that were written down, that kind of thing. Whether he is a metaphysical, God-like divine being, or he was half a higher species, it doesn't take away from the actual overarching book.
I mean, if you go into the book of Genesis, God is referred to as
Look at this Irish guy just talking about Christian. I can bring it
if you go into the book of Genesis, the story of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, and Eden comes from Samaria, which is the Anunnaki were in Eden. Yes. But the Elohim, it doesn't mean God, it means gods, it means higher beings. Mm-hmm. And the reason Adam and Eve get kicked out of the Garden of Eden is not because they've eaten from the tree of knowledge, it's because they're now aware of the tree of life. And God creates them some clothes and then kicks them out. And also, if the God that's described in the book of Genesis, he's not omnipotent, because he would have known that he was, Eve was eating with the apple and talking with the snake.
It's a bit of a dick.
Well, you see, they're I mean,
a higher being, but not omnipotent and perfect.
Yeah. So, and also, I love the bit. Just before I kick you out, I'm going to create you a nice little outfit, and then you're off.
There's your wardrobe. Get out.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating stuff. Yeah. And obviously, there's the concept of a lot of these religions repeat. Like a lot of people bring up the point that Easter is based on Ishtar, which is a Sumerian god. That kind of thing. Obviously, a lot of the Christians early on took religions that were already there, they took paganistic religions, and they're already worshipping on this day, so we'll use their day. So a lot of it's built on
very convenient for holiday planning, I think.
That's good marketing. It's
good
marketing that they have, definitely. But that's the thing. So these beliefs or the religions were already there, and they were built upon. So whether it basically goes to the bigger knowledge of is there metaphysical gods, or were these actually higher beings? And we just to a primitive person, you would see that as a god, right? If we went back in time and showed them an iPhone, we'd probably be considered gods.
Yeah, that is exactly why I want to invent time travel.
But the battery's gone. I have no idea how this works.
I mean, there is a school of thought that it's actually more logical than actual gods. Right? The idea of life existing on another planet coming to Earth with advanced technology to some people would seem more conceivable than God, which is an entity, which is not a not a human, not a thing.
There was times after World War II where people in the South Seas wouldn't have seen the outside world. Basically, when they saw American soldiers or Japanese soldiers, they worshipped them like gods, because how do they these sticks that go that fire, that kind of stuff. And it's to a more primitive people, any type of technology or knowledge can seem to be otherworldly.
Yeah. I mean, Prince Philip. We remember Prince Philip. Queen Elizabeth.
God rest that man.
God rest that man. He. There's a religion devoted to him.
That's right.
Yeah. Cargo cult religion devoted to him.
Cargo cult. That was the word I was looking for.
And that's in our lifetimes with a person that we know.
I'm so following that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, look at it. Wikipedia is your friend, mostly. Check it out on Wikipedia and then do your own research.
Yeah.
It's amazing how many things on Wikipedia are that's not true.
Yeah. Then go into a YouTube rabbit hole and just devote your life to it.
Oh, YouTube rabbit hole.
Every episode of this podcast is exactly what I have to do. So the Iron Pillar of Delhi. In Chariots of the Gods, von Daniken cited that the Iron Pillar of Delhi in India, erected approximately 402 AD, as a prime example of extraterrestrial influence because of its unknown origins and a complete absence of rust despite its estimated 1,500 years of continuous exposure to the elements. When informed by an interviewer in 1974 that the pillar was not rust-free and that its origin, method of construction and relative resistance to corrosion were all well understood, von Daniken responded that he no longer believed extraterrestrials had been involved in its creation.
So he's an open-minded man.
He's an I did actually think that when I read that. I thought, well, he's prepared to be proved wrong.
Yeah.
Which sort of does, to some extent, add maybe to his credibility.
Yeah, it at least doesn't make him seem as grifter-esque. It's like he truly believes it, and if he said, "Oh, but this isn't true," okay, fine, but the rest of it is still believe in it, So it's.
Do you guys believe that he believes completely?
Yeah. Well, the thing with Von Daniken is he's the one that started it all. He put prominence. I don't put a lot of stock by me, even though I think Chariots of the Gods is a great book to read.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
I mean, I'm just trying to, but I don't want to. the cynic in me, which is a large part of me, is sort of thinking he is making money out of this by releasing books. And people, I mean, these books were very popular.
Everybody that had these books. These were a phenomenon, and also a very bad movie, if you've ever seen the Church of God movie. And I think it's his third book. It's complete fiction. Like the Chariots of the Gods, he talks about things that are real and the Sumerian texts and what have you. And so, this is quite interesting. And he raised the question that the pyramids perhaps weren't built by human beings, or if they were, it was built with technology that we no longer have, which I absolutely agree with. But then by the time you get to, I think it's The Magic of the Gods or something, the third book, he's talking about seeing like gold computers in the Andes.
So do you think at that point he's become corrupted by his own success?
Yeah, it was all
it's like I've made this much money from the last two books. I'll churn
just
something
make
out.
up some shit.
Yeah, you'll see George Lucas did it that. Churned out another one for the money, you know?
Yeah.
And because it sold bucket loads.
It did.
People want to have the inside scoop. That's anybody that's listening to this podcast. I know it for myself. It's like we want to know what the truth is, and I don't think that's a bad thing. An unexamined life is not worth living. We've got to examine things, and we don't know how the pyramids were made. And I think that's kind of amazing.
Speaking of modern movies, the concept of the ancient aliens. It's like, not that many people saw this movie, but it's just after Marvel started to die. But Eternals is basically that concept, isn't it? Yeah. At points in time, these evolved beings intersected themselves into humanity and things flourished. So it's very similar concept. The Eternals.
The Eternals is a really good touchstone. I must say, as a comic book fan, the reason that I hate that film, I think Chloe Zhao is an alright director, and they have some great actors in there, but they took Jack Kirby's concept, and went, we can make it better, and they didn't.
It's so boring.
It's such a boring movie. Angelina Jolie, really good casting for Athena. That's what she looks like. Gemma Chan, Cersei, absolutely what she looks like, but they're just so boring.
It's no Madam Web, is what you're saying.
No, but how could
what
it
is?
Be? What is?
Exactly.
What is? Oh my God, I love Sydney Sweeney.
So Cueva de los Teos. In the
what was that again, Phil? Sorry.
Cueva de los Teos. Okay, in the Gold of the Gods, Von Daniken describes...
Oh, that's it, the Gold of the Gods. That's the one that's shite.
Yes.
Sorry.
Well, this is where we're getting into crazy territory. Von Daniken describes an expedition that he undertook through man-made tunnels within the Cueva de los Teos, a natural cave system in Ecuador, guided by a local man named Juan Morich. He reported seeing mounds of gold, strange statues, and a library containing metal tablets, all of which he considered to be evidence of ancient extraterrestrial visitation. Morich told Der Spiegel that there had been no expedition. Von Daniken's descriptions came from a long conversation, and the photos in the book had been fiddled. During the 1974 interview, Von Daniken asserted that he had indeed seen the library and the artifacts in the tunnels, but he had embellished some aspects of the story to make it more interesting. That does start to discredit things you said before, no matter how much you might have believed it, right?
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah, he drank the Kool-Aid. He did.
Money's money, but
these Kate Middletoning photos as well. It's not.
In modern, in the idea of aliens coming and advancing society, like even in modern times, like there's no. If you look at planes, warplanes from World War II, right? They're, you've watched in the movies what they look like. Then 30 years later, they were making U-2s and they were making stealth bombers, which look like complete science fiction compared in 30 years. Some people say the Roswell, this is another thing, but the Roswell and they studied the technology, studied the spaceship, and that's where you get the stealth bomber, that kind of angled sort of look whereby you
transistor.
Yeah,
there you go.
Well, we did it. We did a show about Roswell, and I did not win anybody over. But the transistor has no precedence. It just came out of nowhere, and I was stared up.
Phil is controlled opposition. He is just he can't believe this man.
I mean, we talked about this kind of about the Star Trek theory, and this is that technology that seemed completely ridiculous and unfathomable and science fiction 40 or 50 years ago now is reality, right? No, I mean, not everything, but
if you look at the technological advancement over the last 100 years, there's more technological advancement in the last 100 years than there was in the previous 1,000 years. It's just it's a curve like that. So it's interesting. You can put it down to all sorts of different reasonings, like the Industrial Revolution. you can argue that going on to a different level of capitalism leads to innovation, thereby things get created at a greater rate, stuff like that. But it is fascinating that we don't seem to notice it. We don't seem to talk about like how, compared to our parents and grandparents, we live in a completely different world.
Yeah,
absolutely.
If you were born in 1400 AD and your ancestors lived in 1600 AD, you lived the same lives.
Yeah.
You were wearing the same clothes, going to the same church, probably doing the same job as your great-great-grandfather did.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, this is one of the things like actually in my family tree I've noticed, like go back 2 or 3 generations, I had ancestors doing jobs that don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
I had a great-grandfather who was a nailer. He made nails, like he was a blacksmith, right? He made nails. Yeah. That's not a job anymore. In his lifetime, that job went out of business because they made a machine that can then make nails.
Yeah.
He didn't have to just cut steel and hammer it with a hammer anymore, you know.
Yeah.
So
a nailer has a very different connotation these days.
Yeah.
Legend.
Yeah, acrylic nails. Yes, that's what you mean.
So the Nazca lines, created between 500 BC and 500 AD in Peru by people making depressions of shallow insertions in the desert floor, removing pebbles and leaving different coloured dirt exposed. Drawings of birds, symbols and other creatures exist in the sands. Von Daniken brought the Nazca lines to public prominence in the Chariot of the Gods, with his proposal that the lines were built on instructions from extraterrestrial beings as airfields for their spaceships. In his 1998 book, Arrival of the Gods, he added that some of the pictures depicted extraterrestrials. The idea did not originate with von Daniken. It began after people who first saw the lines from the air made joking comparisons to Martian canals and had already been published by others. Depictions of some Nazca lines photos in Chariots of the Gods contain significant inaccuracies. One, for example, purporting to demonstrate markings of a modern airport was actually the knee joint of one of the bird figures and was quite small. Von Daniken said that this was an error in the first edition, but it has not been corrected in later editions. Consensus among archaeologists is that the Nazca lines were created by pre-Columbian civilizations for cultural purposes. Efforts by archaeologists to refute fringe theories, such as Daniken's, have been minimal. However, Silverman and Prolux have said that his silence from archaeologists has harmed the profession as well as the Peruvian nation. Von Daniken's books attracted so many tourists to the Nazca region that the researcher Maria Reich had to spend much of her own time and money preserving the lines. I've been to the Nazca lines, and I thought before you went there that this was a big thing for Peru. They were excited about people coming to see the Nazca lines, but they're very protective of them because this book actually did cause a lot of issues. People going to see them and basically just
causing damage.
Walking all over them. Yeah. And so now when you go there, you go up in a little biplane, you go over them and you look at them from the sky, and it's amazing. It is, you do think, what the fuck? And I mean, the detail is incredible.
Yeah, but it's just like, it reminds me of like in Ireland, like we have Newgrange. Newgrange is like our, I guess, Stonehenge. Like it's basically a monolithic tomb whereby on a certain day, on the solstice, on the 21st of December each year, a tomb lights up.
Yeah.
And it's yet again, this is an ancient, thousands-year-old civilization where everything seems to be based, yet again, it goes to Egypt, everything's based around the cosmos. Everything's based around the way the sun shines at certain times of the year, and they had amazing knowledge about this kind of stuff. Yeah. And like when you look at this, and the carvings on the walls and all this kind of stuff, it's another one of these examples like Stonehenge of like how did they build this?
There's a really good book I love called Uriel's Machine that talks about Newgrange and what it was. There's other things as well, and it's all very conspiracy theory and Freemasonry, but it does talk about Newgrange and how it's, you know, on the summer solstice and the winter solstice, it lights up, and it's fascinating. So Uriel's Machine.
Do we think that the carvings, and I don't know about the Nazca lines because when I look at I can't really figure out what they're trying to tell us, if they're trying to tell us anything, but the carvings that you're talking about, are they educational? Are they trying to teach future civilizations or future generations, or is it just art? Are they just like doodling on a piece of paper?
Quite artistic more.
They're quite
spirals.
But that's the plot of Venus.
Oh,
so it is.
okay.
That's the course of Venus in the night sky. Ancient civilizations don't care about the future, meaning they're not writing down stuff for us. It was for them, and so whilst it might be very, very beautiful, like Newgrange is strangely beautiful. Because I did a school trip there one.
Well, there we go. We don't have much in Ireland.
We don't have much. You know, and I remember also.
That's why you're here.
Yeah, right.
We come over here, we complain about the British here in Britain.
Yeah, but like we don't live in Ireland. You know? They don't. The ancient civilizations don't care about us. They cared about themselves, and I don't mean that in a selfish way. They were living their own lives, and it was things.
Well, they didn't live very long, so yeah.
Well, the reason we think that adults didn't live very long is because of child mortality.
Yes, that's the biggest part of it. Yeah.
That's what
if you lived to a certain age, you did live to a normal age.
Yeah,
say. But it's just getting beyond 5 to 10.
Yeah.
Like kids died a lot. You know, that's why you should vaccinate kids.
I mean, I do find this theory, well, not just theory, actually, that the evidence that some of these archaeologists have found of who they believe built the pyramids as having sanitation and some level of medical care and sewage systems and stuff, that's quite amazing. So therefore, you would think if they did have that, they would have probably lived quite a long time. Yeah. But then the question is, what happened to that civilization?
Yeah. And you see this kind of breakdown. So like in Central America with the Mayans and stuff like that, what they were able to produce thousands of years ago, they couldn't produce a couple of hundred years ago. That kind of thing. So it's like, what happened? Then you start talking about the biblical idea of the Great Flood. Like, I mean, was that a thing? Was there really at some point in time a cataclysmic sort of meteorological event that wiped away ancient civilizations?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So, and because we didn't write stuff down much thousands of years ago, we don't know. We just know certain civilizations were there and now they weren't there anymore. And that's all over the world. Like we don't know who built like Stonehenge.
Yeah.
Like we don't know what culture it was that built Stonehenge, and that's in this country. So
do you think it was just people fucking about? It's so weird.
Well, stones
isn't it?
are pretty big.
Yeah, they are pretty big. But like you go to the Nazca Lines, you're like, okay, that's pretty. They did that for artistic reasons. And you go to the pyramid, you think that's impressive. Maybe they stored it for some reason. But Stonehenge, you just think, what? Like, what were they doing?
Yeah, stone circles. Even in Ireland, like we have stone circles, and it's a similar concept. They're supposed to align at certain times. The sun shines in and it hits a certain point, and it's based on the cosmos as well. Because we have big like stone circles as well in Ireland. It seems to be whatever the culture was of that time. There's a place near me in Ireland called Loch Ur, which it's one of the first places in Europe where there was settled civilization. Like go back 5,000 years, and it's like, whatever it was, obviously everyone had a certain glorification of the stars, of the sun, the sky, because I don't know, maybe it was good because they didn't understand it. They thought maybe there was this idea that somehow people came from the skies. Maybe this is where our gods or the angels came from. So it's where does knowledge came from? I don't know.
I mean that's something that ancient cultures all have. There's contact with visitors or outside forces, whether it be gods or the Tuatha De Danann, like the fairy folk, all that. There's someone coming in and saying something. They're coming from the inner earth as well.
Like the Irish concept of fairy folk, was that simply another concept for not your people, David? Well, I'm allowed to say that, your friends. But no, this idea that like there was these magical beings who could do things and things like that, and every culture has that as well.
Yeah, it does.
Right?
Yeah,
so. I know, obviously, we can create things, and we're very imaginative people. But where did the idea come from initially?
Yeah, and we've said that on this podcast before. That it has to come. It has to start somewhere. So convictions. The ideas put forth in von Daniken's books are rejected by virtually all scientists and academics who categorize his work as pseudo-history, pseudo-archaeology, and pseudo-science. Early in his career, he was convicted and served time for several counts of fraud or embezzlement, and wrote one of his books in prison. Von Daniken later became a co-founder of the Archaeology, Astronautics and SETI Research Association. He designed Mystery Park, known as Jungfrau Park, a theme park located in Interlaken, Switzerland, that opened in May 2003. He's had quite the life, hasn't he?
So they put him in prison to discredit him because they knew the truth.
Yeah,
that's what happened.
That must be it. Yeah, not that he was just a dodgy geezer. Okay, so Giorgio A. Tsoukalos, is that right?
Yeah,
you're talking about. Yeah, okay. So Giorgio Tsoukalos is a television presenter, writer, and proponent of the ancient astronauts theory. Tsoukalos gained widespread recognition as the host and one of the main contributors to Ancient Aliens, which premiered in 2009 and has since become one of the History Channel's longest running and most popular series. In the show, Tsoukalos and other extreme experts examine various archaeological, historical and cultural phenomena through the lens of the ancient astronauts theory, presenting speculative interpretations that suggest extraterrestrial involvement in human affairs. With his distinctive appearance, including his trademark hairstyle and passionate delivery, Tsoukalos has become an iconic figure within the realm of ancient astronaut theory. He has appeared on numerous television programs, radio shows, and podcasts to discuss his views on ancient aliens and related topics. In addition to his work on TV, Tsoukalos is also an author. He's written several books exploring themes related to ancient astronauts, including The Ancient Alien Question and Ancient Aliens, the official companion book. While Tsoukalos has amassed a significant following among proponents of the ancient astronauts theory, his ideas have also attracted criticism from skeptics and mainstream scholars who view his interpretation as lacking in scientific rigour and evidence. Nevertheless, he remains a prominent figure in popular culture and continues to advocate for the exploration of alternative perspectives on human history and human origins. He's also a meme.
He's also a meme.
Aliens, bro. Aliens, dude.
He's very charismatic.
Yeah. He's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Do you like his show?
I up to a point. It's like, if you have too much chocolate, you start feeling sick. It's like that. A little bit's a lot of fun. Yeah. And then you're like, oh, dude.
When it becomes a series, when you have to produce content, like you have to fill it with, okay, this is clearly crazy. If you can make one good hour-long documentary and stick to the point, that's good. But when it's they're still watching this, we'll just make another season. We'll make up something else.
Great. But going back to your point earlier, is it doing any harm?
Is it? I don't like at what point would it cause harm? It's I'm trying to think of the negative aspects of it. No, if it's wrong, it's wrong. People shouldn't. If something is objectively wrong, doesn't help anyone. But then again, I don't think these people are the ones causing major problems in the world.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm getting at, I suppose, because I've watched a bit of this, and I watched a couple of the episodes today on YouTube, and he is charismatic. Some of it is interesting, some of it's genuinely based on some level of fact, and some of it is just batshit. But at the same time, you sort of think, yeah, but I suppose part of the problem is on the History Channel, which you sort of expect to have a certain level of gravitas and truth.
It's gone to bits in recent years.
When I was a kid, watching the History Channel was very dry and very informative, and now it's really just reality TV
The Civil
shows.
War, was there dinosaurs?
Yes, there was.
But I have to say, I did quite enjoy him.
Yeah,
and
it's great fun.
I think most people, that's it. Most people are in that middle ground of they're sensible enough to be like, oh, there's some interesting things here. Oh, that's crazy. You know what I mean? Most people get it.
Yeah.
You're going to get people on both ends of the spectrum. Most people are smart enough to be like, okay, this just obviously sounds crazy, but that's just some historical questioning there.
Yeah, absolutely. Are some of us descendants of ancient astronauts? Believers in such ancient astronaut stories often maintain that all or some humans are either descendants or creations of extraterrestrial intelligence who landed on Earth at some point in the ancient past. An associated idea is that human knowledge, religion, and culture came from extraterrestrial visitors in ancient times, in that ancient astronauts acted as a mother culture. Additionally, proponents often claim that travelers from outer space built many of the structures on Earth, such as the pyramids and the Stonehenge of Easter Island, or aided humans in building them. Proponents contend that the evidence for ancient astronauts comes from documentary gaps in historical and architectural records, while citing archaeological artifacts that they believe, contrary to the mainstream explanations, are anachronistic, which I had to look that up.
Anachronistic.
Clashes with the time that it was made in. It's not consistent with the time it was made in.
Brandon, I'm sorry. Go
on. You had a joke?
I had a joke and it's just gone right out of my head because I've forgotten how to pronounce the words.
We can edit this.
Anachronistic. Why can't anachronistic?
Anachronistic, yeah.
Yeah, anachronistic. Never mind. It was a terrible joke. I was going to say that would be my drag queen name, but it didn't work. I don't know what.
Anachronistic.
Do the line again.
Anachronistic. That would be my drag queen name.
You're so sharp and witty,
Classic
David.
Dave Ferguson. Wow.
I don't know what just happened to me.
And supportedly beyond the technical capabilities of the people who made them. These are sometimes referred to as out-of-place artifacts and include artwork and legends which believers reinterpret to fit stories of extraterrestrial contact or technologies. Proponents of the theory interpret ancient texts, myths, and religious sculptures as containing depictions of encounters with extraterrestrial beings, they suggest that stories of the gods descending from the heavens or riding in chariots of fire are actually counter-visits by advanced alien beings. So basically going back to what you were saying about stories in the Bible, but also fantastical stories of fairies or gods.
Other beings, but that's a very broad
I forget
term.
the name of the actual ships, but there's a name for them in India, in the ancient...
Panoramas?
Panoramas, yes. Where basically written down, they said our gods travelled around in literal ships. And they explained in fairly boring detail like what the ships looked like. They were shaped like this, they had this level, then this level where they were driven from, and all this kind of thing. So it's amazing that 5,000 years ago they were talking about that. It's interesting.
It is interesting, absolutely, yeah. And the level of, to be honest, even if none of that is real, the level of creativity to come up with that conceptually...
Spielberg of the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or just mushrooms.
Mushrooms, yeah.
Human evolution and DNA. Some proponents of the ancient astronauts theory argue that the sudden leaps in human evolution are the presence of unexplained genetic anomalies in the human genome, which could be attributed to extraterrestrial intervention in human development, as you were saying earlier, David.
Star people theory.
Yeah. Do we believe in that, essentially? Do you think that that's a possibility?
Like a dangerous level, but like it's like the notion of like evolution to a point, there has to be a fast jump at some point.
Yes,
and that's what we call the missing link.
Yes,
like what happened from these ape-like or Neanderthals to Homo sapien? Like what, although they both existed at the same time for a while, but like what created what happened basically that caused a massive shift forward in evolution that we haven't seen. Really in any other type of creature, you know, that kind of thing. So, I mean, it's an interesting concept. Like I'm not a historical biologist or anything like that, but
you might be
an
part
evolutionary biologist. I might be part extraterrestrial. I don't know, but it's like it is interesting. Like what created that leap forward? Like what the missing link? What was it? A mixing of DNA with some higher being. You know, it's certainly an interesting view.
Yeah,
something to study. And
again, does it matter?
Does anything matter?
Anything real?
Nothing really matters.
As we've established, we're all going to die anyway. So.
Are we all just atoms flowing through space with consciousness? Like, what's really happening here, you know?
None of us know.
So overall, proponents of...
So yes, I'm definitely part alien. Just to back to the original point, yes.
Good. That really was what we were trying to prove throughout this whole hour, but thanks. Overall, proponents of the ancient astronauts theory argue that the mainstream science and academia have ignored or dismissed evidence of extraterrestrial visitation in Earth's ancient past due to institutional bias or reluctance to challenge established paradigms. Critics, however, view the theory as a pseudoscientific and lacking in empirical evidence, attributing the achievements of ancient civilizations to human ingenuity, resourcefulness, and cultural revolution. I mean, I don't think any of us are denying that the ingenuity and resourcefulness and cultural revolution are there. We're just talking about what might be behind that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And what led to a point where we were that advanced and we weren't that advanced then for 2,000 years. It's just there's an oddity there. Like, what was there some cataclysm that happened? Why did these civilizations go out of existence? So, yeah, we went from 0 to 60 at some point. Yeah. You know, like what caused that? Yeah, so that's interesting. Yeah.
It is interesting.
Yeah.
So, what do we think? Do we think that ancient astronauts visited us?
I wouldn't be able to rule it out.
Okay.
There's no way I can say no.
Yeah.
There's enough there that I can. It's a maybe. Yeah. I can, and it's an interesting study regardless. I think just to read about these things.
Yeah.
But I yet again can't say for certain. But it's enough for me to be like, yeah, there's some logic to it. Yeah.
I think it makes more sense to say that there was outside influence, whether it's ancient astronauts or not. So you know the court that I'm sitting in.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I am reluctant to believe that it was ancient astronauts. However, what I am interested in is the fact that these civilizations were clearly very advanced to be able to make these structures, build these structures, and actually in some way try to communicate via diagrams, via artwork on walls. And I do think that something happened at some point where we sort of regressed as a species, because clearly at one point they were very advanced, then we took like a huge step back, and then eventually, as you said, a sudden leap forward again. That I can't explain. So whilst I would not rule this out, I'm skeptical that's the reason, but I'm fascinated to know why that back step happened.
And then there's the argument that this is all cyclical. Like this has all happened before. And we will get so advanced and something bad will happen. And then in 5,000 years, they'll be talking about how did they make phones? What was that like?
I think we could see that. We're definitely on the downward spiral. I'm not being pessimistic, but like life's not getting better.
Which is why we've had to do this podcast. So this is documented.
There's one thing that will remain. It is this podcast.
It's this podcast and your family tree.
Exactly.
Okay, so Carl, would you like to look into this camera, tell people where they can find you, where they can follow you, all that sort of stuff?
Sure. If you want to follow me, I'm on Instagram at Duke the Comedian. That's the best place to follow me. Duke the Comedian. I'm the same on Instagram. Name's Cathal O'Riordan. So yeah, just follow me wherever. You'll find me. He'll find you.
Duke the Comedian.
Some of those.
Comedian.
Yeah, that's my old nickname from when I was a kid. So I just kept it. There you go.
Regal. Love it.
DUKE.
Yeah.
The Comedian. One word. There you go.
Would you like a pyramid joke to end the podcast? How could the Egyptians afford to build the pyramids?
I don't know, Phil.
With a pyramid scheme. Come on, that one's not that bad. That one's not that bad.
That's why you sell out theatres, Phil, and we're just struggling in the mud.
If only. That's the end of the podcast. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Please like and subscribe on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. The more lovely subscribers we get, the more episodes we'll make. And follow us on Instagram and TikTok for regular updates and exclusive videos at BelieveConspiracyPod. We love you. Bye.